Good morning with another session and episode for Monday Legal. Today our guest is Ammar El Banna. Ammar is the managing partner of Khodeir Partners UAE. He is a certified lecturer and trainer with Dubai Legal Affairs Department, and he is a certified mental health first aider. Good morning, Ammar.
Good morning, Ahmed.
How are you today?
I'm great. Thank you for having me. Such a lovely setup. Unusual for lawyers to sit down and chit-chat. So
Yes.
very pleased to be here as part of the Monday Legal. So excited to talk to you, actually.
Thank you very much. It's an honor to have you here. The first time I met Ammar, it was me attending a lecture that I selected and paid for with the Dubai Legal Affairs Department, part of the continuous legal training that we have for the lawyers here in the UAE. And the second time I met Ammar was on a beach destination while he was in his nomad legal phase. And later on, we developed a very nice, close business relationship and personal friendship as well. So I'm very happy and honored to invite you today to Monday Legal.
That's true. How did you find the session, by the way? Can you remember it, no?
I remember very well. It was a labor law session, and it was one of the very, very informative and easy to understand sessions. And it was in English language. There was a very diverse group of people. It was one of the very highly attended ones.
Yeah.
I tell you, I enjoyed it so much that I immediately jumped into it. Like, I would like to know this guy. He's younger than me, and he's much smarter than me. I like the way he talks and explains stuff, and I enjoyed it. That's why I approached you that day.
That's great. No, thanks a lot. That means a lot to me, actually. Yeah, I try to make them engaging. I try to, it's part of the CLPD as you mentioned. And I try to make them engage because we're lawyers, really the content of the law. So, and I sit down and say, okay, I'm not going to talk about article said, article this says that, article this says, no. How can I make it more engaging? How can I make it more interactive? And it's good to hear some of the positive feedback.
Yes, it was absolutely a pleasure to have you that day and to listen from you. I'm going to start by asking the same question that I ask everybody, just out of curiosity, not necessary to our discussion today. What's your coffee?
Coffee? Just a black coffee.
Just a black coffee?
Just a black coffee. Just a black coffee. And it's interesting because now I do 1 cup coffee a day.
Oh, wow. Yeah. I do 3.
No.
I try to limit myself.
No. Anxiety level go through the roof. So 1 cup a day, and that's it. I try to. Back in the day, it was like 3, 4. But now, if I want to go fancy, I can go like with a plant-based coconut latte cup. But you know what? My choice always go with the black coffee.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, for me, I rarely go for more than 3. Usually 2 of them are espressos, and if I have enough time to sit in one very long meeting that I have to really enjoy, then I will go for a black coffee.
Doesn't affect your handshaking or your sleep at night?
That's why I limit them to 3.
Yeah.
Yeah, but throughout the day, with long meetings and sometimes long hours trying to get together all my thoughts into one big contract or one big piece of work in general, I need a cup of coffee.
Well, my friend, this is the life we chose.
I try to limit it. I'll take your advice to limit that to 1.
Yeah, I mean,
Let's see.
I mean, for me, I start to listen to how I react to coffee. Back in the days, I wasn't listening to my body, how I react to it, but now I can feel it. No, because what we do is very stressful. It can be very stressful, right?
Yes.
And coffee increases that. It's one of the things I've learned from the mental health first aider course is that coffee does increase your anxiety. And sometimes because we're too caught up in our life, we just don't listen we don't notice these things, how our body react to coffee. It's caffeine. So, what ends up happening sometimes, we're left with the caffeine in our brain, generating ideas right, left, and center, and you can't disconnect sometimes.
We're going to go back to that because this is a very interesting topic as well. But I would like that you start by introducing yourself. I made a very quick, brief introduction, but I would like to hear from you. How did you start with the law and where, and walk me through the whole journey until you are here today with Khodeir Partners UAE.
Sure. Once again, thank you for having me. I'm Ammar El Banna. As Ahmed said, I'm the managing partner of Khodeir Partners UAE. We are a firm of almost now 45 individuals. We're a full-fledged firm. My background, I studied in Egypt, Alexandria, University of Alexandria, Faculty of Law. And I started my career right from the beginning in Dubai. I joined Khodeir Partners as a fresh graduate. That was in 2008, 2009, when everyone was leaving the country. The financial crisis hit around that time, right? Khodeir was hiring a fresh graduate litigator because litigation was just skyrocketing.
I remember that time we were actually the only industry busy. We had so much of conflicts at that time.
It's crazy.
Yes.
I remember one of our clients came to us and he had more than 30,000 foreclosure matter to advise and act on, believe it or not. So anyway, started that with Khodeir, stayed with them for 9 years, and then I moved to Stevenson Howard. I had a great time there, stayed there for 2 years. Then I had a family situation, I had to go back to Egypt. And then I was fortunate enough to set up my own firm in SEP Legal for a couple of years. And during that time, Khodeir Partners, we just had a discussion and I said, hey, would you like to come and join us as an off counsel? And I could see the dynamic working. They were happy for me to run my practice in the UAE. I was running it remotely. I only travel if I have to. And they said, you know what, you can collaborate together. If you have clients that need service in Egypt, we can work with you. If we have a client that needs international kind of service, we can work together and we see how this goes. Did that for 2 years, and we love each other. The DNA was very similar. The dynamic was great. I'm very pleased and blessed to be working with very similar partners to me, which share the same values, and this is very important. And it came to a stage and I had a chat with Mohammed Khodeir and he said, listen, come on, what's happening here? We love you, you love us, let's move in, let's merge your practice with us and be under one umbrella. And we set Khodeir Partners and he said, go manage the firm, build the brand there, and here we are. So from day one, or overnight I would say, I ended up with amazing team, amazing partners, 45 individual, I'd like to say 32 lawyers, maybe the numbers, Muhammad might give me some hard time because there has been some hiring recently in Egypt. So now the offering expands from only litigation to arbitration. I work with Ahmed Qod. He leads the arbitration field. Hanan Farid Deeb, the daughter of Mr. Farid Deeb, Muhammad Khodeir, other partners. So over one night, you have this offering to existing clients, and it's interesting journey. It's something new for me. It's a new job. I'm gonna tell you this. I get the chance now to work with younger generation, and they look at me in a certain way, and I'm in my head, what are you doing this? Why are you looking at me like that? I have no idea what I'm doing. It's a new job. I gotta tell you, managing a firm, it's a new job. And when you have a small practice, what you do is that you bring in the work, you do the work, you bill for the work, you collect your money, and you do it again.
Yes.
That's pretty much okay. That's the cycle of it, right?
Yes.
But now, when you take this role, say, okay, what's this? What am I doing here?
It's completely different.
Yeah. But I'm glad I'm working with Mohammed Khodeir and Ahmed Qod, such lovely people.
Amazing team, of course.
And they've been doing it for so many years, so working with them is just such an amazing thing to have, I gotta say. So that's the story in a nutshell.
That's very good. I want you to go back a little bit to your upbringing and to the start before you even start with the legal career.
Yeah.
Because I know some stories, but I would like that you highlight
Sure.
a little bit, because your story for me is a bit inspiring.
Yeah.
And please, I think sharing it is very beneficial.
I don't think it's inspiring, really. I think it's just a story. So what happened is I grew up in Saudi, in a small village, and that was in the 80s, 1987. I was born in Alexandria, then I was taken to maybe 1-2 months to Saudi. And my father was the first dentist to get hired by the government there. my mom was the first psychiatrist. She's a professor in psychiatry. And my mom tells me the stories that it was a tiny village, and there was like an exhibition next to the clinic that the government has newly delivered and built. And we just had this small, like an annexure to it, you know. Yeah. But outside of that, it was just nothing. And the Saudis, it's the place called Bisha. The Saudis call it Bisha ma fiha Aisha.
Oh, okay.
Which means like Bisha, there's no life in Bisha.
Oh, wow.
And that was in the 80s, believe it or not. So, so there was a very humble upbringing. I didn't have much to communicate with. I didn't have much to interact with. The education system was very basic. I went to government school, Arabic. I didn't speak English until I was 12. So I lived in Saudi for 10 years. And again, the Saudis in the 80s is nowhere near what we see and hear now.
Yeah.
Have you been to Saudi recently?
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, whatever you saw is nothing.
Didn't exist back then,
right? So and then I moved to Egypt when around middle school. I think I was 11 or something. And then coming to Egypt was like, whoa. Because you know, Egypt we're such a massive population. We have such a wide society. And you get from very liberal to very conservative, and in the middle there's like a lot of categories of people, right?
Yes.
In Saudi, it was a very conservative community that I was part in. And then I was like, okay, what's happening here? And I didn't speak the language. When I say the language, I mean the Egyptian slang, the dialect, you know.
Yes.
I remember I was speaking Saudis. Even until now, when I speak Arabic, people confuses me that I'm not Egyptian, I'm Saudi, or I'm an Emirati, because my tongue still have it, believe it or not. So, and then again, when I moved to Egypt, I continued my studies in Arabic, again, public schooling. And I start to consider speaking English around 13, 14. And that was, I think, through self-taught, most likely. It was through movies and songs. And you remember MCQ?
Not really.
So maybe you're younger than me.
Oh, no.
There was this chat before WhatsApp, you know, back in the 90s.
ICQ, is it?
Is it MCQ or ICQ?
There's ICQ, and there is another one called MIRC.
Can't remember.
Okay,
like,
that's
like,
I get it.
You don't see pictures, nothing. You go to like
just a window,
a dark window.
Yeah.
And you start typing. You talk to people randomly, and you only see the username. You know where they're from.
It was a code with numbers, I guess. Yes.
And there was this distinguished voice. Cuckoo.
You
remember this? When we had to put the wire to the.
I think it was ICQ.
I'll take your word for it.
That's what I remember. Yeah.
So I used to do that a lot to kind of understand the dialogue, and that's how actually I learned English. And then I went to law, and here we are. And I started my career, and actually interesting you talk about that. I started my career at Khodeir Partners as a court clerk.
All right.
So I used to be the guy who takes the submissions, the pleadings, prepare them, and go meet the local council, the local Emirati advocates, and just attend the hearing, follow up on the court decision, come back with the update for the client, follow up on the procedural side of things, filing cases, following up, and the procedural side of litigation. And then I used to hate it. But it's only when I accepted it, because I thought, I'm a lawyer, what am I doing here? What's this? I remember, and head of such a great firm to kind of see this resentful young guy. Like, of course, you could see that, right?
Yes.
You have a very successful business, mashallah.
Yeah.
You know, when you see younger lawyer, you can identify and you can see, right? So I pretty much know that I was like, this guy. But it was Richard Briggs, one of my mentors, actually, that guided me and took me under his wing, and he always supported me. But that's how I started. And when I accepted that this is my role now, I start to look at it more substantively. I start to understand, okay, I'm going to use this time to understand how the court system works. How, from the day you file your case until you get your money from the execution, all the way from the court of first instance to the court of appeal to the court of cassation, I want to get it, I want to understand. I kid you not. So I moved from resenting what I'm doing to live in Oud Mitha. I used to live in the Greens back then. And then 1 year later, I moved to Oud Mitha, which is 3 minutes away from the court, because I knew all the judges and the court officials lived there. So I became friends with judges. We used to go to the prayers together, play football together, and we had chats. Hey, and I was the young guy,
Yeah.
I also know my boundaries. I'm talking about particular cases, but we talk about the system, and they give me tips and tricks, how to draft, how busy they are, how annoying lawyers can be.
Very interesting.
And I start to love it, and I start to understand. And to date, what I've done in my start of my career helps me dramatically. And clients see the value that I bring in, because I look at the bigger picture from day one. I don't get drawn to the core of the matter without understanding, okay, where's the money? How can we enforce? How can we start? How can we expedite the process? How can we prolong a little bit to avoid some attachment order for a little bit for the client to get the money out of the system, whatever. And that helps me a lot. So, and then I moved from being a co-clerk to an associate, senior associate with Hadif. I'd like to claim I was the youngest senior associate. Again, Hadif might come back and sue me for inaccurate information, but I think I was the youngest back then. And then Stevenson Howard came along, and I moved from Hadif to Stevenson Howard. Hadif obviously is such a great firm, or a regional level. Stevenson Howard was a move to the next level as an international law firm. Such a lovely firm to work with, great people oriented, and that was always important to me. And it was good for me to understand the letting go, start to understand, okay, because in Hadif, we're like in Dubai office more than 100 lawyers, 80 lawyers, and things work. The system works, how we do things work, clients love us, and we achieve things. Okay, now I'm going to a new platform, an international platform. They do things differently.
Yeah.
And you might, and at this stage, I was what, 32? I can't remember, maybe 31. I can't remember exactly. That was in 2018. You start to become a little bit senior, and you have your own mind and thinking, right? You think, why do you do it this way? This way works, and it's easier. But then you have to learn, okay, I need to empty my cup. Yeah, this way works, but these guys do it this way. I came to their house, I need to adjust with this. So that was interesting. Did that for 2 years, and then I had a family situation. I had to leave UAE to take care of a family situation, and then only then I was blessed with abundance in life to see that actually there's a different way of being successful and establishing a legal, and the traction that I got from my client, they followed me naturally. I think we can touch on that later in the discussion, but a second nutshell of my background.
Very nice. The reason I mentioned earlier that this is an inspiring story, because it is, of my opinion, that you are a managing partner today, a bilingual capacity, and with a big firm, a growing firm with a fantastic team. At your age, which is closer to my age, don't get me wrong, it is significant. And considering what you told us about the upbringing, when did you start speaking English, and how did you start with a local firm here that as a clerk, and then you turn up in few years to be a legal trainer, someone who is certified in the mental health, and someone who is an expert in litigation, and now you're a managing partner. I would like to understand, how did this happen, and when did it happen? Tell me, for example, when did you switch from being such an expert in litigation, and at the same time you started giving training?
I don't think I have an answer to that degree, but I think what I can share with you in hindsight is that I really cared about what I do. And for me, I'm a very passionate person when it comes to helping people. And it's something I think one of the main reasons I chose law was for that. There's money in it, obviously.
Of course.
There's also prestige that comes with it, right? But the core belief system that I have is people. I'm such a people-oriented, and I connect with people, and I can feel them, and I'm very curious about people. Like when I sit down with you, I'd like to know about you, and I'm a good listener. I'm really, tell me more about you, and the more you tell me, the more I feel, okay, I get to know you, right? And lawyers fundamentally do that. Lawyers fundamentally help people. I mean, we are service providers, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes we forget about that, right? And it's about the submission. It's about lending the big client. It's about the deal in your world, like closing a deal. When is the next deal, the contract? But ultimately, if you think about it, we're service providers, and we provide these services to people who are in need. And sometimes they need someone they can rely on and help. And I always had this in my mind. And also I'm a caregiver naturally. I'm a father of 3 boys, and although what I do now as a managing partner, I get the chance to work with the younger generation, and I get to deal with them. And there's definitely science behind it, how to manage team and how to. There's books you can read about it, right? The feedback I've been receiving, and I'm very conscious of that as well. The feedback I'm receiving from the team and from our brilliant COO is that I said, listen, I sat down with my CEO, I said, listen, tell me how am I doing with the team? Sometimes they don't talk, and I want to know how am I doing with them. And the feedback comes to the extent I think is accurate, is that they love it, they learn, and they enjoy it, and they find a lot of value to it. And I don't know how I'm doing it. I don't know how I actually do it. I don't sit down and think about, okay, this is how I'm going to do it. I'm going to say this, and I'm going to do that. I think something comes to me naturally as a caregiver, as a father, and something I realized recently, to be honest. Like I told you, I walked into this not knowing exactly the job. It's a new job that I'm learning. So I think if I can say something about how this happened, I think I care about people a lot, and that shows. And clients know this about me. I care about the people that I work with in my team, and that's the starting point. I'm also a go-getter by nature. By nature, I just go and get things. And people sometimes, and I also don't give myself enough credit sometimes. So when you come and tell me, ask me this question, I genuinely don't know what's that big thing that I've done that you might think inspiring. That I just, right?
Part of the inspiration is being really humble about it.
It's not really. I promise you not to be humble. Sometimes like people say, "Wow, you speak very good English." Like, okay, you've never spoken until you was 12, and then I don't know. You know what I mean? Like you don't give that much credit to yourself sometimes. I think sometimes that helps as well.
I think it's very important as well. Understanding is that not so many people have the maybe they have the skills, but not the will to actually go and get it. As you just said, like you decided at the age of 12 to change to build up a completely new skill, and now it's an essential, important skill, and without it, you cannot be a managing partner, or you cannot be a bilingual lawyer, you cannot be a legal trainer, and you cannot be advocating for mental health, for example. And because you're living in a country that people coming from all over the world, and probably more than 50-60% of it, they don't speak the word Arabic. And switching from here to there is very significant when you do it at this age. So I find it inspiring.
One of the things, as you talk, like I promise you, I didn't have any answers. Like as you talk now, you remind me of something I always thought about when I was in Hadif. I could see, so Hadif is a fully bilingual, full service, local law firm that does international standard practice, right? So I always worked with international lawyers from the UK, from the US, from Australia, from New Zealand, South Africa as well. And I also worked with the Arabic lawyers, Egyptians, Jordanians, Sudanese, Emiratis, and so on. And I always was interested about the bigger picture. And I could see how the English lawyers or the Western lawyers operate, and how the Arabic lawyers operate. And how these guys look at these guys, and how these guys look at these guys. And I always think, oh my God, there's such a gap in the market. First of all, they're not talking as much as they should. They only talk on the matter. But no one really understands the story behind this gentleman, and he doesn't know about the gentleman much beyond it. So the thinking is not matching. You know, they are now coming in one place in time, but I promise you, they haven't acknowledged the fact that I came from the West, you came from the East, and now we're here. Let's know each other and see how can we actually collaborate. And magic happens when you actually think about it this way. And I could see the gap in the market as a bilingual lawyer who can actually advance and do what the English lawyers do. Again, I'm not going to compete with the solicitors and barristers that I know my place in the market. But you can, to a degree, have the skills that to communicate, not with the English language per se, but with the international language, if you know what I mean. English is one thing. Knowing
Yeah.
What your client thinks, what's the needs, it's a different language.
Yes.
And the English is different than the Americans, the British, the European. You know that for sure.
Yeah, I understand.
And then you know the Arabic, how they operate. And then I say, okay, I can do this part of the job very well. I know Arabic, I can draft, I can research, I can know the issue, I can solve the problem. And I know how to speak to these guys. And this gap I can bridge in the market. And that was very useful in my career. And this is something I always advocate for the younger generation. Like, listen, there's a place for you in the market. You just need to do these things to excel and go and grab it, you know? So that also helps sometimes.
You started your career basically in litigation, so courts were part of your legal upbringing, let's put it this way. And as a litigator, that's your how you identify in the legal field, let's put it this way.
Right.
And so tell me about your experience in litigation. Like, what I know very well that you have handled a lot of employment matters, complex ones, big ones.
Yeah.
And I would like to learn more about what cases did you handle the most, or what you enjoy.
You know, I can share some of the stuff that we come across. Before I jump into it, I find litigation very important, and I find lawyers must and should and must have, to a degree, a knowledge of what's happening in litigation. Because law for me, what's law in your opinion? What is law?
Regulations that governs how people deal with each other.
That's exactly how I see it. But the problem with that, these regulations is only theoretical until you see them in practice, right? And when you've been here for many, many years, you've seen some of the articles we come across are inactivated or not practically, we don't see it practically happening in front of us. So you can read the law, you can have a PhD in the law, but if you don't understand how a judge, how an authority, how a ministry is going to enforce this law, I don't think you know enough, right? And it's one of the things also I've discovered during my time in Hadif, when I see the corporate lawyers, how they look at the context of the law. And they would have a very impressive interpretation to the context of the law, something I would never think of actually. But in my world, this is completely far from what is the actual interpretation of it. And the answer to that question, how is this law getting implemented, is not your mind, it's not my mind, it's the judge mind.
It's the judge mind, yes.
Right. And like I told you, I spoke with some of the judges, and we used to have chats about some of the unusual interpretation. We would conclude sometimes, some occasions, that this application is unusual. I can think of a discussion I had with His Excellency. I'm not going to mention his name. He used to be part of the head of the Court of Cassation in Dubai, and there was a very odd. I'm sure you know the rule in the UAE, bounce checks.
Yeah.
When you sign a check for a company as a general manager, you are personally criminally liable for that. So this is if this check bounced, you now expose yourself to a bounce check criminal complaint, right? So it's the company's bank account. That was a check that was made for the company's obligations, but you signed it. So what is the crime there? The crime there is I wanna escape my mind now.
So breach of trust.
Not breach of trust. Escape my mind. Fraud check.
Yeah, fraud. Yes.
Yeah.
It's a fraud.
Yeah.
It's actually drawing a check without insufficient funds, which means a fraud.
Yeah. So this is a fraud. So the idea is that you knew. So the thinking behind it, the thinking behind the unpacking of it, something I love to do about the law is to understand the rules, right? Is that when you signed this check, you knew that there was no cash in the bank account.
Yeah.
Here's the dilemma. You're the managing partner of a firm. You sign a check because you have an ongoing obligation for the next 5 years, right? One of the suppliers is a due check of, let's say, 1 million. You did the check 2023, okay? 2030, sorry. 2030, the check is due. And every year there's a payment needs to be done according to an agreement you signed. When you were on your job, the money was there, the company was rich, there was money on the account. Then you resigned. You left the company. Right. The check is still there. 10 years later, 5 years later, the check get bounced. Guess who's liable?
The one who signed it.
The one who signed it. You go and say, no, I left the company. I'm not the manager anymore. You can even say, when I was manager, I can prove to you that I was fully aware that this bank account had enough money to make this payment. Yet, you're still liable.
You'd be still liable even if the signatory on the bank account have changed.
There you go.
And just in the history, you were once, at a few years back, the signatory on the account. And I've seen cases in this regard, and that's probably why the law have changed.
Exactly. That was a historical case. You're right. Yeah. Spot on. So an example like that, you and I would think, as the great lawyers can think and say, this is unfair. You can advise this manager who came to you now, who left now, who lives in Hawaii in a short, and come to the question. You can tell them, doesn't make sense for you to become liable, but actually he is liable. How would you know? Check the practicality of the courts. What does the court apply?
Yeah.
So, and I always thought that you need to have an exposure of how these articles are getting interpreted by the judges.
Yeah.
So,
How would it end up in the hands of the judge, and what he is going to decide is probably one of the main reasons I think corporate lawyers and litigation lawyers have to be speaking all the time, because we are drafting the contracts that will one day land on your desk and you will take it to court. So if we don't communicate and we understand each other and understand how this would be treated in court, because the theoretical part of the applying the law into the contract is not the only aspect, and I agree with you.
I'm glad as a corporate lawyer you mentioned that, because Muhammad Khodeir, who's your peer as well, he's Muhammad is a big name in the corporate field and the IPO and the M&A, and he also headed the GAFI, was the CEO of GAFI in Egypt. He sent me a meme when I joined, and I tried to, before we finish, show it to you, but something in the same lines as, okay, our contracts corporate lawyers do is the work for litigators for the future.
Yes, exactly.
At the moment, we're acting for a massive dispute, and there's a corporate question that comes up. As a litigator, we don't dabble. Muhammad, off you go. Please advise. Tell me, how can this, and this is my strategy, and I would say, this is the case strategy. We want to achieve this, and that. There's a corporate element to it on a shareholder level that might impact the defense. Can you please look at the documents? Here's the MOA, shareholder agreement, here's the... I don't want to get involved. Give me some answers.
Exactly.
But obviously, we don't do that, but we check it, and then we talk and we discuss, and this is very, very important.
The continuous communication between both of us in this regard is very important. I do not think I would trust a contract that is drafted 100% without picking up the phone, talking to my litigation friends, and what happens in this case, or maybe doing some research on my own just to understand how the court would look at this 10 years down the line, just to advise the client. And I know very well that our practice is protected, we are insured, we are working with our best knowledge, but at the end, if you're honest enough and you want to put your face behind your work, you have to do enough homework before you advise your client.
Well, we're here. You have my number, right?
Yes. yes, absolutely. I'm going to take you back to one of the points that you mentioned there, because it triggered something in my head. A lot of transactional, especially in the M&A business, with the corporate lawyers get involved in, they are common law qualified and common law trained. And since we're living in the UAE, or in the whole area in the Middle East, is relying on civil law litigation, civil law trained counsel. How does that work from your perspective? Because you receive a lot of litigation work that comes based on contracts that is prepared by common law lawyers.
Oh man, I'm glad you asked this. How much time we have? Right, interesting. And before I answer you, I think it's important that, and again, I can get a little bit philosophical here, because coming to your definition of the law, self-regulations that regulates people's behavior and interaction, right? And then you think, okay, if you think about us as human beings, we have the same set of problems in every sector. So let's say on employment, let's say you have an employer-employee in the UK, in Europe, in the US, in the Middle East, in the GCC, right? The same company have almost the same objective. Employees have the same objectives. However, and they most likely have the same set of issues. Let's say an employer want to fire an annoying employee. It's the same issue, a problem that the employer has. Okay, think about it. Why do you have, it's the same problem in different jurisdictions. Why do you have different rules that regulates the same problem?
Cultural differences, difference in drafting in the articles of the law itself from one jurisdiction to the other, sometimes in the same jurisdiction, but in different types of companies, or
it's exactly that. It's different jurisdiction, different culture, you said.
Yeah.
That's the key word. It's different laws for sure, but then why the laws are different? It's the same, we're the same human. It's the culture that says the law is different. So actually law is a reflection of people's culture and background. And when you go a little bit deeper in that, you understand a lot about the country by understanding the laws. In the US, you want to fire someone, Ahmed, you're fired, off you go. You come to Egypt, it's a little bit, okay, the law says that, but the practice says that, I don't know what to do. In the GCC, okay, most of the GCC countries, is that okay, you can fire, you're gonna pay a compensation of X amount of money, and that's how it goes. Go to France, it's a nightmare to fire someone. You can't. And then you ask why. Look at the US, it's a capitalism. They care about where the money follows, and employers represent capitalism, so the laws will support the employer all the way. French society, socialism they followed. So they support the social people, and they take care of their nation, and they make sure that the people are happy. In the GCC, the majority of the employees are expats, so they want to attract them. They also want to make the employer happy, so let's find something in the middle. You can fire, not like France, but also not like the US. You gotta pay something to compensate the guy. I want to make you happy as an individual, so you can come and bring your family. And I also want you, as an entrepreneur, as an investor, to also be happy and come and invest with your money. And this is really what the law is about. It's understanding that. And sometimes we forget about this. Coming to your English law point. Oh man, the amount of contracts that I've seen, English law governs. Why? What is this? What does it even mean, right? So in a transaction, Mohammed Khodeir should have actually come and answer your question. He'd be better suited because he loves it. As a transactional lawyer, he advises his clients, international clients sometimes, that let's tailor it. Let's not take especially in the banking and finance, let's not take it as it is and apply it. Let's see. So we have no problem applying English law concepts to start with, right? It's fine, but let's localize it. Why? It's not because egotistical reasons. Sometimes it's that, I'm gonna deny. But other times is that it wouldn't work. You want to navigate through, this is a 5 years contract obligation. You need to make sure that whatever obligations and whatever specific performance clause you had, whatever liquidation damages clause you agreed on, are applicable and enforceable. And this is something sometimes lawyers forget about. But having said that, I work out with Adnan Overees, Eversheds, and Herbert Smith, and the international Dentons as well. And we have this discussion, we have this dialogue, and when they see an Arabic lawyer like myself, like yourself, who is a bit international, not egotistical, and he doesn't want to apply the UAE just because that. No, actually understand your client's international problem.
In the future.
And I know what he wants to do. This is a more comfortable and more familiar law for him to apply, but why? Then you have a discussion. Then you understand the why. What's really he wants to protect. And then you can, okay, you know what? How about this?
Yeah.
And then you can tailor it in a way that satisfies your clients, but also you can produce a document that actually can get enforced if things go wrong. So,
yeah, that's very, very enlightening. I think it's it's clear, and I had the same experience in many transactions, and I think it's the communication between the professionals in this sense is very important. That's why in many occasions we ask for a lawyers only meeting. So we don't want the client in the room, we just want the lawyers to be in the room. Let's discuss this, let's fix this between us, and then we will get back to you. We'll tell you what we decide in the end.
Yeah.
Going back to the labor law, because I know for a fact that you have been recognized by a lot of peers in the industry that you're a labor law expert. What are the trends right now? What's happening in the market right now? Because we've seen the new law that came in force a few years back, and there's a lot of changes from we don't have any more unlimited contracts. We are applying new set of rules for the UAE in general. Tell us about it.
Yeah, so you remember the rule I told you about employees getting compensated for losing the job?
Yes.
This is now gone.
Disappeared.
This has disappeared now, but it has been replaced by the unemployment scheme. Funny enough, actually, one of my clients was the mastermind behind the unemployment scheme. He made a lot of money out of that. But you see, the country is trying to, very smart. I found the UAE government very, very smart. They always try to find and look for smart solutions to always do two things mainly: attract people to come and live in the UAE. Look at this. I mean, the camera shows the view here. Like, look, the marina here that we're looking at 10 years ago is maybe more than 10 years, maybe 15 years ago, wasn't as it is, right?
Yeah.
And these buildings require people to be living in them, right?
Yeah.
So how can you attract the people? Very smart. So the government think, how can we attract the people? So by taking the compensation out of the law, that was a bit okay. So then employers can abuse employees and they can just leave with no compensation. I can fire you tomorrow without any sequences. But now you see the unemployment scheme come in place to a degree, compensate you for the loss of your job. You know, so that's interesting. But an interesting trend, I wouldn't call it a trend. It's actually, I'd like to believe it's a groundbreaking case that we recently acted on in the oil and gas sector. We were advising and acting for one of the biggest oil and gas companies in the world, and there was a massive, how can I say this in an uncontroversial way? Naughty directors, let's say, the Muslim way, and they've been orchestrating a sham scheme for many, many years, and resulted in $14 million worth of breach of trust that was embezzled out of the company. The way the scheme has been orchestrated, like, it blows my mind. You can't put them together. You can't, like, the investigation team spent enormous amount of time to try to understand how the scheme works. So now we understand. We believe and we know for a fact that these guys were stealing our money. But then how do you convey that to a police officer or to a public prosecution officer? It's a challenge, because it's the way, again, I mean, these days, the white collar crime type of cases, no one pulls cash out of drawer and put them in pocket anymore, right?
Yeah.
We couldn't link the sham scheme where we're talking about inflated prices, sham companies that family of these guys owned. They charge triple and sometimes quadruple the amount of normal market price to the company. So you could argue it's all commercial disputes, all done through contracts, commercial contracts. You can never pinpoint them. We tried to get them in the civil court, and we failed in the court of first instance. In the court of appeal, I was just like scratching my mind. And that was the benefit of me working with my English peers, understanding what an injunctive relief is, understanding how the DIFC court operates, understand how the UK system operates. And so this is actually quite interesting. You can ask a court to oblige your defendant to produce documents that actually can find them guilty. That's quite unheard of in the civil jurisdiction. Doesn't make sense to us as well. The concept, as you might know, the claimant is responsible for proving the case.
Proving the case, yes.
If you don't prove your case, you don't have a case, right?
Exactly.
I can't oblige you, Ahmed. Show me that email that will find you guilty. No, so no, go prove the case, right? That's the concept.
It's your liability. You have to do it. It's your job.
And by the way, there's a lot of thoughts that comes behind that, but I'm not gonna bore you with it. Yeah, because I thought about it a lot. What's fair? Is these guys the West or the East? And there's very, very interesting thinking behind why privacy matters in the Middle East and why maybe openness is and fairness is being indicated in this way in the West, but I'm not going to get into that.
Yeah.
So I thought, let me see then. Okay, that's interesting too. I would need this mechanics as an injunctive relief to apply it in the civil court. How can I do that? So I start going back to my roots when I was a court clerk. I said, you know what? Let me go and open the civil procedural law. I start reading into it, and I see this article that gives me some light that I can do. Let me try. I was faced with a lot of resistance from my peers not to do that. I said, that's not going to work. You're going to embarrass us. What's this? And I said, listen, that's the law says that. I'm going to ask the Dubai Court of Appeal to join the banks of these individuals, international banks. I'm going to ask the court to oblige the bank to submit their personal bank statements. From the beginning of the scheme start, up until to date, we're talking about 15 years of bank statements. You wouldn't believe it. The court accepted it, and we got the bank statements. It was an uphill battle. It was a bloodbath with the lawyers, right? The client couldn't believe it. We had the bank statements.
Wow.
And it wasn't like bank statement that one that you would get from in your email, a detailed one, because we wanted to understand. And we managed to find one trace of link between the sham scheme and these individuals. So that was very interesting case to witness, I have to say.
One of the very interesting things that I wanted to ask you about, what brought you in the mental health? And I know you've been making a lot of speeches in this regard, and you're officially recognized as a mental health first aider. What does it mean? What is a mental health first aider?
Yeah. I mean, who am a lawyer talking about mental health, right? Exactly. So first of all, I'm not a psychologist. I'm not a psychiatrist. I'm not a therapist. I'm an attorney. So I'm not advising people. I'm not providing advices. I'm just, I had a personal story with mental health. I had a family situation that really got into me, and made me unable to function as I should. And it brought a lot of perspective to me, I have to say. It wasn't easy at all. And I had to go and reflect on my career. And I realized that I was running on empty for a long, long time. And alhamdulillah, I got out of this, and I started to feel better. And I started to go and see a therapist. And as you can imagine from my upbringing, talking to a therapist about my feeling? No. If I had a headache, or maybe someone broke my arm, my father would tell me, go and have a nap, you wake up better. Very traditional man. I'm a very traditional man. So talking about mental health and talking about emotions is no way. And you're a lawyer too. So, but subhanAllah, what happened to me in my personal, I'm not gonna call it setback. It's an unfortunate thing that happened. And it really affected my ability to continue to do what I do as a lawyer. And I hit the rock bottom, and then I started to reflect on life and my career and what I do. Alhamdulillah, God showed me a whole new different world that I can actually be more successful, make more money, have more freedom, without the need of keeping up with this facade. When I say facade, I mean the corporate facade that we as lawyers have to keep up with, right? So that's how it started, really. And I started to feel better. I started to understand things about myself better. I didn't know myself that much, to be honest. And I could see myself performing better and doing things for the right reasons. And I realized that I was running on empty in the last God knows how many years, and this is wrong. And I see this in a lot of workplaces. I worked with so many bosses, and I've seen, I was very hard to manage, by the way. But the secured bosses, the ones that are comfortable, the bigger ones, always managed to work with me very well. But the ones that were insecure, we couldn't work together at all. And I could see the insecurities that lawyers sometimes deal with, and the conflict they internally deal with on a regular basis. This is not healthy at all. And I remember one of the people I used to work with and share an office with would say things like, whatever happens of the day, we need to carry on and just water over the duck header. And I thought about that. I said, no, I'm not sure I agree. No, because I get to see then the overwhelming process of it. But so what's happening here is this. You're dealing with a stressful situation in your day, but at the same time, you're not allowing this to actually come to the surface, and you want to keep a certain image to the people you work with and the clients you interact with, right? And this is a very dangerous place to operate from, right? Because what's happening is you are you are expanding the gap between who you really are and how you're currently feeling at the moment and what you're supposed to be doing. There's a facade that you need to keep up with, how you dress, how you look, how you talk. But this is too far away from how I feel at the moment, right? And that can break you. And I've seen people in their 50s and their 60s and their career, big lawyers, would break after that. And I say, okay, this is not right. And I actually wrote an article about it. It's called, "Are You Okay, Big Shot?" And it's a little bit cynical. Satirically, I deal with lawyers who keep up with this image. Imagine yourself walking into the office with a black coffee guy walking into with your full suit, 3 pieces, conquering the world. Let's close this deal. Let's have the submission done. Okay, that's great, but are you okay?
Are you sure you're okay?
Are you okay, buddy? By the way, it's okay not to be okay, by the way.
Yeah.
So, and this is very important. Funny enough, I had Harvey Specter photo on the. I think just to be more cynical about it, right? So that's how it started, really, and it's an interesting topic because I'm an advocate of it. I'm a big believer in it, but I'm also realistic. I don't believe in life-work balance. Doesn't make sense. I think it's a made-up cliche thing. No.
Yeah.
We deal and work with clients who operate on a high pace, very stressful businesses, and they need the lawyers to be ready, and they should because they're paying for that. So the expectations is that you should be sharp, smart, know the answer, ready, available, approachable, right? And we cannot change that. So the idea is, how can you actually operate in this high stressful job, yet creating a space for you to operate in a healthy way, right? Imagine like working in the ER and you see all this blood and death and sad and cryness and say, no, I can't handle that. And if you can't handle it, it's not meant to happen for you. But the idea is, it's a stressful job, how can I manage it, right? So this is what I'm trying to do. It's a big, something very important to me. And I can give you a simple example. Have you noticed how do you breathe when you draft your emails?
I've never put any attention to that.
If you see, you'll be surprised. You don't breathe well at all. When you have a tense email to draft, you don't breathe well. It's like,
I noticed when I start hearing the clicks, tack, 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 I was like, oh my God, I'm very angry.
see?
Yes.
You see? I met Mo Gaudet.
Yeah.
The great guy. He was a great guy. I was invited by Dubai Legal Affairs Department to one of the symposium, and he came and spoke, and we connected. And such a lovely guy. And he talks about the tiger. He talks about anxiety. It's good. When you face a tiger, you should be anxious because your body wakes up. You need to run, breathe, sweat. You need to survive. And the body should give you this booster, the anxiety, to make you go from 0 to 1,000 or 100, depending on how serious the situation is, to survive for a certain amount of time, and then your body comes back down. We do that every day, my friend, without a tiger.
Yes.
Right? So it's scary. It's sad. It's very sad.
It's a very stressful job, and I can understand if lawyers, specifically lawyers that don't have hobbies, or they don't do sports, or they don't have a very stable family to go to, it can be a very tough job. And I've seen a lot of my colleagues switching out of this career in general because they can't take it anymore.
Yeah. So it's real. It's true. Have you seen the news of this partner from Penson Mason who committed suicide?
Oh no, I haven't.
It's crazy.
Wow.
It's last year. I mean, a few months ago.
Yeah. Sad.
You can go and check it out. She was working on a big deal, and the talks around it she was very stressful, and she decided to end her life. And this is a lawyer who appears from the surface to be very successful, very presentable, looking top notch, Yet there's something in the background I'm not showing you, and I get that, and it's very sad, to be honest. Like, look at me now. I talk about it publicly, openly, and I love it, right? Yet, the first time I talked about it publicly, And again, I'm not a therapist. I don't talk about it. I moderate sessions and I bring people who knows the topic to talk about it. I just have a vision of what I want to do, what my message is, but I also know my boundaries. I'm not going to be influencing people. What do I know, really? So I remember the first time I collaborated with some of my clients. Cigna Insurance is one of them. They do out of the work in mental health. Dr. Saliha Afridi, who's a big name in the Ministry of Happiness when we had this ministry. She's also the founder of Lighthouse Arabia, such a public figure in mental health. We brought Kiran Skar, such a renowned lawyer, former GC, Eleanor Novery type of lawyer, and a personal trainer, and we kind of make the discussion flow in a certain way. And I bring them together, and I had nothing in it. I was just complete passion driving, talking to these strangers. None of them knew each other, convincing them that I want to do this. Dr. Saliha, bless her. I tried to find it. She's a very busy lady. She was very kind to come and said, yes, I'll come and speak. And it was a non-fee generating event. And I remember we did the brochure. It was lovely. And then okay, now we're going to market for the event, right? Again, I'm on the point of the stigma that lawyers have, and to this poor partner who ended her life because of this stigma. She didn't speak up. Yet, someone like me who talks about it and did all this work to gather all these people, now it's time to market for it, right? I go to my LinkedIn, I start type, in a decent way, I'm not moaning. And I said, hey, people who know me, I had a family situation that really affected me, and I was blessed to have my own practice now, and I saw abundance, and I could see that all these fake ideas that I had for success doesn't exist. I can express how I feel and take care of myself while being this and that. Here I am. I was 35 back then. 35 years old, single father of 3. I tell you, your mental health matters. Very nice, subtle way of messaging it. I couldn't post it the same day. I looked at the event, I looked at the post, and I said,
that's a lot to post.
No, I said this. The stigma is real. I said, I have clients who followed me on LinkedIn, and I'm acting on ongoing cases for them, multi-million dollars of disputes, complex dispute, multi-jurisdictions, very complex, nasty fight.
Yeah.
The last thing they want to know about is that the male lawyer is talking about mental health issues.
Yes.
Think about it, and it's real. If you one of your loved ones is doing a surgery, and you learn the day before that, or the same day that the surgeon is having a mental break, how would you feel about it? What would you do?
I feel very bad.
You change it.
Most probably.
Right. Yeah. Why?
Because I understand that the mental state and the emotional position where you are affects your performance and everything.
You see. So there's an element to that scares people. And I wasn't delusional. I said, okay, I might lose business out of that. And I'm sure that people might come and say, hey, Ammar, what are you doing? No one has told me that in my face.
Yeah.
Right? But I'm sure that I have a lot of peers and friends and clients. What's this mental health? Are you crazy?
Something wrong.
Yeah. Why? No, we don't say. But I said, you know what? This is such an important thing to me because it tackled me personally, and I felt better out of it. I'm going to do it regardless. And if I lose business out of that, that's fine. The beauty of this client came and thanked me for my post. And I didn't know that at all. He said, I had the same family situation and I couldn't speak up. Thank you so much. I'd love to continue working with you. Such a great thing to do. I didn't know all of that. I went into it acknowledging that I might lose some of my clients. Right? But and I might still, some people might not want to interact because of this element. But for me, it's such an important thing to talk about and to address. And the issue is real. The stigma is real. And how important this is 100% there. It's not a cute thing that you wave. Studies show you employers who invest $1 in the employee's mental health get a return on the investment by $4.
Yeah.
The science is there. You're going to become more profitable if you take care of your people's mental health.
If I'm your client and I see that my legal counsel is that much in peace with himself and that much aware of where he is, that he is posting such a post, I'll be even more confident because I have someone who knows very well about himself. He knows a lot about his emotions, and he's in peace with himself so much that I feel I'm in the right hand. I'm in a good place. So
That's good to hear this
kudos.
message. It's good to hear that. It's good to hear that. But again, this is one opinion. I'm sure there will be a different opinion, and I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
Like I said, I'm very comfortable in my own skin now. It's okay. And you start to realize something else I want to talk about before we move on to the next topic, actually, about mental health. And as lawyers, you and I, we know this. We have a big problem. We think too much about ourselves. We think too highly of ourselves. As we should sometimes. Because think about what we do. People come to us with big money, big corporations, big problems. They come to us and they talk to us and they tell us what should we do. And we tell them, they listen, they do it, it works, and we get paid for it, right? Other people in the world, they lack the sense, if I want to feel like I'm getting hurt, can someone feel me? Can someone listen to me? Lawyers, people come and they wait for us to speak to them, right? So, and it works. And you have this mind that can analyze things and tell you, okay, this is the problem, this is how you solve it, that's what the law says, this is the practicality of it, this is how you're going to do it. You're going to do this, and that. CEOs, CFOs, multi-million dollars on the table, and you decide. And it works.
Yeah.
And they love you, and they come again to you, and they refer other people to work with you, right?
That's satisfaction, yeah? It's happiness.
It is. But what also does to you, you take this mentality home with you. And you think, I'm a big guy.
Yeah.
I'm a bit, I can
fix everything.
I can fix everything. Right? And alhamdulillah, I was very blessed by getting slapped in the face in a decent way and realizing my limitation. I really realized with this family situation how limited I am. I'm just a lawyer. What I do is not very complicated. Yes, there's a level of complexity, but it's not rocket science. I just help people. My role is to do this, study, know the law, the updates, give the care, attention, be due diligent, do the work, and ends there. That's my role. So I do that, and that's it. And I realized how limited I am and how shortened my time here in this world is really. No one's going to remember the big case you advised, I promise you. No one's going to remember the fancy car you drove. No one's going to remember I have this like penthouse and this place. No one's going to remember that. But people are going to remember other things. Oh, actually, this guy helped me how to stand up and talk. This guy helped me how to be someone and be confident and so on. So you start to shift your attention by realizing your limitation in terms of your ability and your time. I see this in the most productive way. I'm not saying that where you can do, the sky is the limit because of what you can achieve in life, but you need to function like that, knowing that you're really limited. You're just a person that has limitation, and
Yes.
things can go wrong beyond your control, and you need to accept it.
That's amazing advice, and I think I completely agree with you. But it fits a lot for senior lawyers, the ones who are already established and are successful enough. I would like that you give some other advice to the young ones that you started working with right now, because everybody who's starting their career, they have limitation in their resources, or they have not an easy way to start their career in the law. And what would you give them as an advice?
I would give myself an advice first. It's on me to create a place for these guys to be able to bloom.
Yeah.
You know, the younger generation is like seeds. It's my role to collect the good seeds and nurture them, and like a farmer, you have to become a farmer. You can be a hunter when you're younger. Yeah. You have to continue to be a hunter, but you're also going to be a farmer because it requires this care, right? You can't plant a seed and the next day it will grow, right?
Yeah.
It needs the right environment, the right sun, the right temperature, right? So I'll advise myself, you have to be conscious of that. As for the younger generation, you need to have fun in what you do. You need to find something that attracts you. You need to go and explore yourself and explore what really gets you out of your bed every day. Don't do it for the money. Don't do it for the prestige. You have to think and find something that's bigger than money and prestige to continue doing this job. It's a very stressful job. The spotlight you'll get from this job, you'll get spotlight, you'll get money, it wouldn't matter at a certain time of your career. What matters is why you're really doing it, right? So I would say find something that really excites you about this job. There's many. It's also on us, you and I, as older generation, is to create this fun and interact. The action that these guys can see from this job, it can be very boring, it can be very interesting.
Yeah.
So it's on us to show them this part. So it's a two-way street, right? So do that. Be an explorer, I would say, but also be a hard work. There's no way around hard work, and you have to bend your back and just do the work.
You have to put the time.
You have to put the time and effort. There's no way around that, I promise you. If you want to cut corners in this job,
go ahead.
The market will spot you in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
Heartbeat. You know, find the value that you can provide, and be okay if it doesn't work for you. Go find something else. It's not the most great advice. I think people have different opinion on it, but this is my honest views.
Honestly, I totally agree with you. This is a job that is hard, that is stressful, that requires a lot of time, dedication, that you cannot keep what people call work-life balance with it. Yeah. You've got to love it. And if you don't love it, just find something else. Yes. Ammar, thank you so much. I enjoyed really talking with you, and thank you very much for having the time to come here and to be with us.
Ahmed, thank you so much for the invite. Thanks for the crew. I had a great time here. It's a bit hot, I gotta tell you that, but I'm not sweating. By the way, I'm not stressed. It's just hot.
Summer,
I'm sweating.
Summer is here. Summer is here. Well, thank you so much. This is your dose from Monday Legal. See you next week.